So this game, I played a little bit of it yesterday. I tried it out for the first time. Never played a single game in the Granblue franchise. And I'm going to be real, guys. This is a game that in a little bit kind of gets in the way of itself, right? It's like, oh, I've got to listen to the story again. I think the story was like, I didn't like the story. Didn't like the story. Gameplay was great. That's my opinion. Let's see what IGN says.
You've probably seen the trailers or gameplay for this highly anticipated anime-stylized action RPG Granblue Fantasy Relink. Maybe you've actually played the free PlayStation demo to get a gist of the core gameplay. But even with those details factored in,
why
you
did I
really
say
don't know
IGN?
what
This
you're
isn't
in for
IGN.
with
This
the
is
full
Eric's
game,
Gaming.
because
What
it's
the fuck?
way different to a standard traditional action
literally
RPG
right there.
game like it first
Idiot.
appears to be. You see, Relink actually takes some of the better elements of different game series like Monster Hunter and the Tales of and more, with its various different gameplay mechanics, quest flow, combat, and multiplayer. We've played over 100 hours together as myself and 2-6 powered through the game's story, and then the subsequent questing system.
See, bro, he knows. He knows what's up. He knows what's good right there. See that?
System, which honestly has us kind of hooked. I'm going to try my best to not spoil anything, so no details of the story itself will be mentioned or spoiled, and we'll be using some very—
Thank you. Please. Let's not talk about the story at all. Let's pretend like it didn't even happen.
Very early gameplay or the official trailers, so you don't have to worry about us showing you anything that isn't already out there. But we will mention some of the different gameplay systems and elements, as they're prudent to explaining how the game flows and progresses as you start ranking up and unlocking harder quests in the post-campaign gameplay. So let's go over broadly what the game as a whole is and what you can expect from it, because we were way off with what we thought the game would be, and I mean that in a good way. You start the game off with a set roster of characters, which is the crew of the Grand Cypher, your airship, which after a short tutorial section, you can then switch between and play as them or have them in your party throughout the game. Progressing the story will be your first focus, and this will take you through the various different areas, or Sky Islands as they're called in Relink. Cygames have consistently marketed the story as around 20 hours in length, and although this is definitely possible depending on your playstyle, we feel for the majority of players it will actually come in at around 10 hours. The story itself is very interesting with lots of boss fights and epic moments, but did feel—
The boss fights are great. Like, this boss fight was actually pretty decent. And I could see it on, like, a hard mode being good.
short in comparison to our expectations. However, if you enjoy trying out all of the different characters, doing quests and farming along the way, as well as leveling them up so that you can use them in your party as you get further and further through the story, then naturally it will take longer to complete.
Yeah, sure.
Whereas if you just want to go back to back and run through the story missions, you will be slightly underpowered, but with enough skill you can still complete them, and that will make the story a lot shorter. So the story's duration all depends on how you enjoy playing your games. Now, while the story itself is a fun part of the game, it really ends up being a lesser focus of the overall experience. As you progress in the story, as well as other objectives, you'll unlock additional crewmate vouchers, letting you unlock more characters into your roster, each with a massively different playstyle and role. But then after finishing the story, you go on to start your progression into the game's questing system. The best way to explain this to all of you is to think of it—
I mean, this game to me just seemed like Monster Hunter with like a few other guys. Like, that's really the vibe that I got out of it. It's like Monster Hunter, but you have these other guys with you, and there's like more upgrades you can do, and like, maybe I don't know enough games like this yet to like have a better comparison, but that was my comparison. Like, yeah, I thought it was good. Monster Hunter sucks? You think so? I don't think so. I thought it was great.
A Monster Hunter game. You have a story, but also the repeatable hunts or quests to farm either gear in solo or multiplayer online with other people. Well, Relink has kind of the same flow. There's a full story, but also the quest board with different mission types from horde battles to defense missions, and most importantly, bosses to farm. In Monster Hunter, you also have all the weapons to try out, to learn and grind, and in Relink, you have all of the characters which function and play differently, each needing to be leveled up and grinded to increase in their power if you want to take them to the higher level content.
I think that the leveling stuff, like, I feel like a lot of games don't really have like super interesting leveling, but like with this game, it was fine.
Granblue Fantasy Relink also has a difficulty system.
One guy, one guy in chat said Monster Hunter sucks. Everybody else said Monster Hunter was good. I read his one message, and everybody in chat thinks that everybody hates Monster Hunter. Yeah, no, it was like literally one guy.
Whereby after completing the story, you will need to complete marked quests, kind of like urgent quests, that will then unlock more missions for you, eventually leading to a rank up quest, which will unlock a whole new tier of difficulty.
Okay.
So the game basically has its own version of low rank, high rank, and so on, with normal, easy, hard, and even more difficulty levels to unlock. This means there is a lot to do, unlock, and experience even after you've finished the story when you start getting into the questing. Furthermore,
man,
these different...
this looks a lot easier than whenever I did it at level 16. This looks way fucking easier.
rank up tiers keep actually progressing the story, and there's entire missions with big impact on certain story characters and the world, which you would only experience if you actually get to these higher and higher difficulty quests. Which means if you include the time it takes to go through this questing system to get these extra missions, which are pretty awesome, then the story is substantially longer. But it's not like these repeatable missions are unique content, so it doesn't really count. And it's a bit of a shame because some of these missions are actually really awesome, and we think the average player probably won't get to experience them unless they keep playing even after they think the story is over.
Yeah, I'm kind of like a little bit, like, that's weird to me that like the majority of the game happens after the story is over. Like, for me, I really liked how, and it depends on like what you mean by a storyline, because like I like how in Monster Hunter there's like still full voice acted quest lines for like hard mode bosses. Because it makes me feel like I'm not just doing random bullshit. I'm like actually continuing to like round out and finish the game.
This aspect, the game really does just keep on giving, and
so I'll be curious to see this.
Entirely new progression systems, ways to improve our weapon or higher level sigils as we got further and further through the questing. We often found we thought we were at the end, only to discover that there was more and more each time we ranked up and unlocked a higher difficulty. I won't show anything, but there is some awesome stuff awaiting you guys at the very highest final difficulty level.
Bro, I wish you'd show us. Like, I want to see it.
Well thought out quality of life and different gameplay mechanics that make playing the game a lot more enjoyable and smooth, unlike other games that could potentially fit in this genre. There's a really easy to use wishlist system for finding specific materials and items that you need.
That's nice.
Loads of tips in the in-game journal, and a bunch more things that just make your life easier as you play through. Then with all of this, you can factor in that the game has many different characters which all level up, unlock masteries, and require weapon upgrades individually, making the total possible playtime exponentially higher if you're someone that doesn't like sticking to one single character. And these characters really make the game shine because they're all incredibly designed with totally different playstyles, strengths, and functions.
Yeah, I do feel like playing this Scythe guy was like way different than playing the what do you call it? Playing the Sword and Shield guy. Like, I haven't played a lot of the different characters yet, but it actually does feel like it's different.
If you're someone that doesn't like to experiment and try different characters out, then of course you'll lose out on a lot of additional time and content leveling those guys up. But in general, you'll be testing different characters out in the training room, learning combos, and even making builds with the in-game sigil system, which offers your character a ton of different traits to increase their damage, utility, or survivability. For example, I've been loving Siegfried and have fully committed to maxing him out with loads of damaging skills to get those big meaty chops with his greatsword. But it does
128,000? Guys, did I pick the wrong character? Oh, he's level 100. Okay, it's fine. It's fine.
It does feel really good to try a new and different character, and it sort of makes you want to start progressing them for that extra variety. For example, there's another character called Fairy that is totally different and interesting, and I genuinely might need to switch to her and start grinding again to get her up to a higher level, and that's just one of the main characters, which, by the way, there are more characters planned in DLC after release, with 2 that we've seen so far looking pretty awesome. Now let's touch on performance and platforms, because I have now played this on PlayStation 5 via the free demo, my full playthrough on PC, and have some playtime on my Steam Deck by trying out some of the quests to see how it plays. In my experience, PlayStation felt alright to play on. I would say the demo felt as though it had some input lag or perhaps a bit of variable frame rate, making it feel a little off, because on PC, which I do have a high-end setup, it runs buttery smooth, looks great, obviously it has stylized graphics so it's not a pure fidelity focused game, and the inputs felt responsive, which is quite important because you will be doing things like guarding, dodging, perfect guarding and dodging, and even timed inputs on certain characters' attacks.
All of the responsiveness and gameplay of this game, I would say, is a 10. When I hit the button, the thing happens. It sounds crazy, but it's that simple. There it is.
I've had no crashes, stutters, or frame rate drops, or even issues with the multiplayer.
Game feels very polished.
It does. Stable in this way, but the game hadn't launched yet, so the servers haven't been under stress. For the Steam Deck, it is good news as it was pick up and play for me without any tweaking needed.
I need to
the
buy
game
one
is
of those.
designed with the controller in mind, so it's mostly seamless to adjust to the controls, and it's great when docked with a controller. I haven't tested it low.
I played it with a keyboard and mouse, and I thought it was great too. I had no problems with keyboard and mouse. I also beat Sekiro with keyboard and mouse. So, maybe there's something wrong with me, but yeah.
But I had no crashes, although I was lucky to get higher than 40 FPS, with it being very variable in an actual quest, which isn't ideal for a game with a large focus on timed inputs.
Can you buy me one?
It was definitely alright and playable, but it wouldn't be my first choice to play on, as it's just so smooth on a full PC. I personally would recommend playing it on PC if that's an option for you, just because it feels great to play with higher frame rates and seemingly no drawbacks. Overall, Granblue Fantasy Relink is really more similar to a hunting game than a pure action RPG.
Yeah.
It has crazy boss fights, cutscenes, characters, and abilities that you would expect from a more traditional anime action RPG. But also,
like, I was really like, I'm interested because the reason why I heard about this game and people started talking to me about it is that you could play with other people. That's what I want to do. Like, that's my goal. Like, I want to play with other people and, like, you know, do boss fights with them. Like, I don't really give a fuck about, like, the story or, you know, any of that stuff. I want to play with other people, like, do bosses, upgrade my gear, do the most DPS. There it is. You can now. Yeah. I'll probably just go through the story just for the, you know, sake of brevity and just complete it myself and then maybe do that afterwards.
Though the replayability, diverse playstyles, and progression of a hunting game with more story that's unlocked along the way. So, this is a game I would feel comfortable recommending to someone who's looking for either a romp of an anime story, albeit a short one, as well as someone hoping to get hours and hours of solo or multiplayer boss battles in, with tons of different and unique characters to play, somewhat akin to something like the weapons in a Monster Hunter game. The game is a fantastic blend of both the action RPG and hunting genre, but the lack of content does bring it down a notch from standing aside some of these great titles that many of you know and love. We absolutely...
It's going to be pretty hard for, I mean, like, this game to compete against Monster Hunter because Monster Hunter had a, like, the Iceborne expansion is probably the biggest expansion that I've ever seen for a video game. And, like, I know that they built off of it. It's not like it just happened all at once. But, like, obviously this game isn't, like, you know, I would say, like, base Monster Hunter. Like, no Iceborne, none of that. Compared to this, that's what I'd be more curious about. It's an expansion? Yeah, I know. Well, it's a separate fucking game. Bigger than Blood and Wine? I know what that is. I know that's The Witcher, but I don't know if that's... I don't know anything about it.
The game keeps on giving, and the core gameplay is super addictive, with both myself and 2.6 sinking hours into it without realizing how late in the day it actually gets. But it's not without its drawbacks. The game has an okay range of monsters and bosses, but let me tell you, you will be fighting some of these bosses over and over again to get into the higher and higher difficulties. And this is probably where the game suffers most. You will
I think that, like, this is, like, if that's a problem for you, these kinds of games aren't for you. Because I think that these are combat perfection games where people constantly play them to get better at them over and over and over. Like, for example, I watched, like, this video of this dude that fought a Rajang, like in Monster Hunter Iceborne, and like he was charging up his attack, and like the boss was over here. I was like, why would you charge your attack? And then the boss just goes right here and he hits him in the fucking head. And I'm like, oh my god, this guy, how many times has he done this? And it was so fucking cool to watch, right? So it's like, if that's not the kind of stuff that you're looking for with a game, then you're probably not going to like a game like this. This is probably not going to be the kind of game that you like. But for somebody like, you know, for, you know, fighting Dark Souls bosses, or, you know, doing Monster Hunter or something like that, that to me is like really cool, because it's like you just keep getting better at it. It's like, it's not like speed running, but it's like like something that's like adjacent to it, you know?
You get tired of certain bosses and their different various elemental versions by the time you're 30 or 40 hours in, and you do need to farm and defeat them in order to progress. If the game had double the number of unique boss types and a longer story,
like
this
Procol?
could have been a masterpiece title. However, due to a couple of these shortfalls, it does bring the game down a notch, simply because the lack of variety ends up making it a bit repetitive. But for
I'll be curious to see what that's really like, because I'm just so early in the game, I haven't played enough monsters to really have that experience yet. I wonder how true that is.
First entry into this space, it's actually very impressive, does things differently, and is a bunch of fun throughout. So we do still feel this is a top tier title. Oddly enough, this is where this game is one of the very, very rare games that would actually really benefit from being a live service. And trust me, I don't say this lightly, as often we do not want a live service game. But in this instance, it's actually incredibly well stanced to have everything in place to be a superb game as a service if they dropped frequent and regular new characters to play, additional boss types and new enemies, higher difficulties, raids, and even additional or higher level sigils. So this might be one of the first...
He brings up a really good point. I think he's right. I do. And I think that it shouldn't be live service in the way that like Destiny 2 or World of Warcraft is live service. I think it should be live service in the way that like Monster Hunter or what's another game that's kind of like that is live service? Fuck. Like Genshin? No. Like I feel like Monster Hunter is like the only one that I've like really played that's like that. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I think Monster Hunter is probably that's the only one I can really give a strong example of. Fire Dancer, thank you very much for the raid. What's up, boys? How y'all doing? Hey. Thank you very much for the raid. I appreciate it. Thank you. So, really only Monster Hunter? It's a specific genre? Yeah. And so, like, I don't think that they should just, like, keep adding in, like, new gacha shit or new characters that constantly power creep the old characters. But just like having collabs, having like new monsters that they get added in every once in a while with maybe some things that you can buy, you know, cosmetics, etc. Like one thing that I really like about like any sort of like online type game is seeing other players in the game. And I really wish that like maybe they have one of these later on, but I wish that there was a place that you could go and see all the other players. Like to me, that's really important to feel like I'm playing an online game. I just think it's super cool.
Games I ever feel like could have been better as a live service game, which is something I
like a hub.
Really
I
would ever say.
Hub.
But don't let these drawbacks be the main takeaway. The story is still a bunch of fun. The actual boss fights they have are pretty awesome and engaging.
Yeah, I've said before, I think the story is... I really didn't like the story. I haven't liked the story so far. They're like... I think it's mediocre. But again, the gameplay makes up for it. And I really like that, like, you look at like the weird, like, pastel, like, style, like, over here. I really like the style of this game. I really, really do. It reminds me of a lot of games that I grew up with.
The character variety is incredible and each one feels unique and different to play, and it's a blast to jump in a multiplayer quest with your buddies. Make sure to stay subscribed below because we're going to have more Granblue Fantasy Relink content and guides coming your way soon. Drop a like if you enjoyed the video, and thank you so much for watching.
I think that's...
Guys, that's right, it's me again.
Second.
You've probably...
Just a second. Yeah, no, I'm really happy about this. Like, I played it, as I said. I really, really enjoyed the game a lot. I think it's great. And so would I recommend this game? Like, I cannot give you a review of the game. You know, this guy spent way more time in the game than I have. But so far, my experience in the game has only improved, and I've only begun to enjoy the game more and more. You picked the wrong character? I did not. I picked the right character. That's it. If you like Monster Hunter, you like this game. Yeah, there it is. Phantasy Star Online is live service you can use for reference. See, like, that's the thing. I can't use that for reference because I never played it, right? There's the video. Make sure to give it a like.